Ladies and gentlemen, before Ohio Valley Wrestling, Smoky Mountain Wrestling was the preeminent training ground for future wrestling superstars. Although it no longer exists, Smoky Mountain Wrestling's contribution to pro wrestling lives on in an incredible video library. Now let's go to Jim Cornette.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Cornette and welcome to this special video compilation, Blood, Brawls, and Grudges. Some of the wildest moments of the greatest matches from the history of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Smoky Mountain Wrestling was a regional wrestling promotion from the early to mid-90s, headquartered in Knoxville, Tennessee, promoting throughout the southeastern states. And some of the top names of today got their starts and made their early reputations there, as well as some of the great veterans of the sport competing with the intensity that had made them famous. The first match that we look at today is a six-man tag team match with some very unique tag team combinations. The enforcer of the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson, for the first and only time, teaming up with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express, five-time former NWA World Tag Team Champions, as they battled a team very near and dear to my heart. Sweet Stan Lane and beautiful Bobby Eaton, who had comprised the Midnight Express and the NWA, were joined by Dr. Tom Pritchard as a three-man team, the Heavenly Bodies. Six-man tag team action, Knoxville, Tennessee, and the roof is about to come off of the Civic Coliseum.
Worked together for quite some time, even though Bobby Eaton is like a Johnny-come-lately to the combination of Pritchard and Lane. But still, he has been with Jimmy Cornette for a long time, so they know exactly almost what's expected out of the team. Arn Anderson, on the other hand, of course, is thrown in there with the rock and roll. They have different styles. They probably have different strategies and different philosophies, seeing as how I'm an expert on that. And I'm going to see what you're going to see right now. We're going to see how this team, the Rock and Roll Express and Arn Anderson, they work together. Wait a minute. That's called a Mexican head scissors. And Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane both off the apron. Tom Pritchard in the center of the ring taking a shellacking. Now there is a cord of dissension running against the Heavenly Bodies. I might throw that out there too.
We saw that here back in the Smoky Mountain area about 5 or 6 weeks ago. A little dissent there between Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton.
Well, I think it's more, but right now I think it's, now this is what I pick up in the dressing room. I think it's more some dissension between Tom Pritchard and Bobby Eaton. And I think Stan, now Stan, he tries to calm it down, but Stan Lane sometimes, he likes to stir it up.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at.
He likes to stir it up behind Cornette's back. That's just what I'm picking up in the dressing room.
Well, regardless of what's happening in the dressing room right here, it's Dr. Tom Pritchard going against Robert Gibson, and it's a pretty even match as where it goes.
Now here comes the enforcer, Arn Anderson, the first time he's been in this match. And Bobby Eaton is taking a shellacking just in the corner. He's not even stepped officially into the ring yet, but has already been nailed twice completely off the apron.
Tom Pritchard, Arn Anderson go collar and elbow, and Pritchard takes a shot at Arn Anderson.
What a shot by Pritchard, but Arn Anderson, it didn't faze him. Wait a minute. He yanks him down. He's going to go to work on that leg.
That'll put you out of commission right quick to run your leg into that ring post like that, and he goes for a second time.
Well, let me say this right now while we're watching Tom Pritchard over there with a hurt leg, courtesy of Arn Anderson. See, Cornette made a statement earlier, the toughest three men in the world right now are the Heavenly Bodies. I'm going to have to disagree with him. I think the most dangerous three-man combination in wrestling today, of course, is the Stud Stable with Jimmy Golden, Robert Fuller, and myself. Now, they're not here today, and that's why I'm sitting up high, because these men, none of these men down there are like me. So that's why I'm up here. Now we see Bobby Eaton down for the third time in the corner with Stan Lane along with him.
Tom Pritchard in the wrong corner looking for that tag. As we have pointed out, we had Pritchard's leg run into the corner post, and Arn Anderson goes for the figure four.
Well, he goes for the figure four. Wait a minute, they're all going for the figure fours. Now we got a triple figure four lock in the ring now. The referee's going to have to break this up. We do have a disqualification rule in this one.
Going to work on that weakest part of the chain of the Heavenly Bodies. That is Tom Pritchard.
Now here's the bad blood. Now look at these hammering shots Bobby Eaton's put on Arn Anderson. He knows that Arn is after him, so he's going to take the battle to him right now, and he's got Arn hammered down in the corner. The turnbuckle and a charge. Oh! Bobby Bobby misses it. Bobby Eaton misses it. Takes that buckle.
Well, in that case, it was the best offense and the best defense there, and the best defense won out.
Very good, Phil. You're catching on this commentary.
I'm learning from you.
Wait a minute. DDT by Arn Anderson on Stan Lane. A punch and another one on Tom Pritchard. And now let's see what they're going to do. And another one. So what we've seen in the last 30 seconds, a triple figure four. And now Cornette's in the ring. Oh, look. Oh.
And that's something Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard don't want to see. Their manager manhandled by Arn Anderson.
Well, he almost got Cornette. We see Arn Anderson praying like, thank you, spiritual one, for delivering me Jim Cornette almost on a platter, but he waited a little too long, and they got to him. He didn't get the DDT on Cornette.
Fans, please do not throw anything at the wrestlers. If you do, you will be.
Wait a minute. Oh. Robert Gibson outside the ring, and two big shots by that tennis racket. He is down. Bobby Eaton attending to him now. Back in the ring. Now Stan Lane's, he intercepts him, takes him in. The clothesline, Robert Gibson down. And giving him a little word of advice there, like, boy, you're messing with the heavily bodies. Now, I'm gonna have to give both these teams their due. They're tough teams. They're big and rough, but I don't think they're rougher and tougher and better than the Stud Stable. Well, let's see right now. See, if you take all the titles these men and the Stud Stable have held collectively, it's more than any other like 9-man combination probably in the history of wrestling.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the ring. We'll get to your Stud Stable a little bit later on, okay?
Oh, well, now I have to throw the Stud Stable here. They are like the forgotten entity here. Everybody wants to forget the Stud Stable, but they are well and they're alive right here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. But I will do what you said. I will take it back to the ring right now. Robert Gibson on the receiving end of some punishing blows delivered by the heavenly bodies. Now Bobby Eaton got Robert Gibson. This bad blood between the Rock and Roll Express and the heavenly bodies, or whoever Cornette would have at that particular time, maybe the Midnight Express or whatever. It goes back to 1984, started in the old Mid-South territory down there, and in Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Orleans, Jackson, Mississippi. But that's where it started, and it's continued until this day. Now, a tag to the fresh man, Ricky Morton in the ring. Stan Lane down, Tom Pritchard up, Bobby Eaton getting hammered again in the corner. Now, Tom Pritchard taking a ride.
It's Bobby Eaton against Ricky Morton, and right now with that...
So are you discounting my theory on Tom Pritchard, which is not a theory?
No, I just don't want to be in for a possible lawsuit, a libel, defamation of character type of suit there.
Do you know Tom Pritchard? It can't be a defamation of character if you know him.
Well, I'm not going to get into that. Tom has all the right in the world to sue you and me for defaming his character if he chooses to do so.
Well, you haven't said anything.
I'm not going to be a part of this conversation. Right now in the ring, it's Ricky Morton.
You are a part of this conversation. There you see Ricky Morton trying to be the hot shot he thinks he is, getting his head almost severed from his body by Bobby Eaton. Now, getting back to our conversation, you're not going to get sued. You haven't said anything. You're just merely a party to what I said. I also have a pre-law background, too, so you are free and clear, okay?
I would hope to think so.
Wait a minute. Ricky Morton on the outside. The playpen wouldn't hold him. Now, the table back up. We saw this a little earlier. His head rammed into the announcer's table. Now, like we said before, this match anything might happen into it because these men, there's a lot of bad blood here.
For one thing, this is not, Dr. Mantell, this is not a scientific wrestling match in any stretch of the imagination. It's pure chaos.
Well, that's what it should be because, see, these men are not, they're not exhibiting the wrestling arts. It's more like a street fight. And see, they're all outside the ring here. Not one man is in the ring except for Bobby Eaton, but he is watching. He is watching from a distance.
But Cornette used a tennis racket on Ricky Morton, and,
good.
And he's got the table up there now. Cornette is a devious type of person.
Well, no, he's really a smart man. But see, let me say this: he is smarter than the Rock and Roll Express and Arn Anderson, but he's not smarter than the stud stable.
He's smarter than the average Smoky Mountain Bear is what you're trying to say.
Well, he is smarter than the average Smoky Mountain fan, too, I'll say that, which doesn't take a lot.
Well, I've yet to determine who is the legal man in the ring right now. Arn Anderson, we've got Dr. Tom Pritchard, Stan Lane, Ricky Morton, and Robert is cut off at the pass on the other side. Anderson is still on the outside.
Well, the referee, Mark Curtis, trying to keep some control in the ring, but you got 7 guys in this match, counting Cornette, and it's hard. He doesn't have eyes in the back of his head. So right now, Mark Curtis is sort of happy because at least the action is where he can watch it. The other men are neutralized in the corner, and now he's just watching in the center of the ring what's going on.
Tom Pritchard got the arm bar. You can't see it over here, but he's got applying plenty of pressure to that left arm of Ricky Morton.
Well, Ricky Morton, now, if he lays there and he gets punished, if he cannot get to the corner to make a tag, then he's going to be in some serious trouble. He's really not at that point right now. He's hurt, he's damaged, but he's not really at the point now where it's almost a do-or-die situation. But if he stays in this position long enough, it will be that. Wait a minute. A back kick by Ricky Morton. He sends Tom Pritchard for the ride, reversed by Pritchard, and a power slam by the doctor, Pritchard. Referee Mark Curtis, 1-2. Didn't quite get him.
Tag made. Bobby Eaton comes in, goes to work on that arm of Ricky Morton. And that is the weakest point right now in their attack, is that arm of Ricky Morton. They can cripple him there, decommission him. They've got a pretty good chance of getting a pinfall right here.
Well, they have a good chance of getting a pinfall, but like I said, if this punishment continues, they may have a good chance of having Ricky Morton just give up. Now, you see right now, no tag made. No tag made. Stan Lane comes into the ring. Bobby Eaton slides right out. Referee asking, was a tag made? The fans reacting. They're trying to tell this goofy referee that no tag was made.
That's a smart move on the part of the Heavenly Bodies to make the switch like that with the referee's back turned.
Of course it's a smart move.
I'll give him credit for that.
Well, it's a smart move, but
an illegal move.
Well, whoa, a big kick by Ricky Morton. Sort of stunned Stan Lane. He goes to the corner. He tags Bobby Eaton. Now let's see what now we got a tag. The enforcer in the ring. The big left hands. Arn Anderson left-handed, of course. A big slam. He rose right out. He's going after Eaton. That's the one he wanted to get in this match, and he's after Eaton on the outside now.
Well, the two legal men are Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton, and they're getting back into the ring. And we've got Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson and Tom Pritchard and Stan Lane all doing battle too.
Whoa! There you see the trademark signature move of Bobby Eaton, the spinning neck breaker performed on Arn Anderson. Now here we go. Alabama Jam off the top rope. He hits him with it. See if he hit him right. No, a save made by Robert Gibson. Now we almost got 3 separate matches going on right now. Jim Cornette up on the edge of the ring.
Cornette tosses that tennis racket over to Bobby Eaton. Look at there.
Well, he's got the racket. Oh! He hits Tom Pritchard with it, and Arn Anderson grabs it. And a shot by Anderson.
Oh, we've got a cover here. 1, 2, 3. And it's the Rock and Roll Express, the winner.
Well, 6-man tag team competition was very popular in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and the next match contains another unique teaming. The only time ever that the Macho Man, Randy Savage, a former World Wrestling Federation champion, ever teamed up with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express, as they faced the 3-man team of Bruiser Bedlam, Brian Lee, and Chris Candido, managed by yours truly, and a young lady named Tammy Fitch, who would go on to greater fame in the World Wrestling Federation as Sunny. Take a look at this match, which has never been televised.
We've got 6-man tag team action here. The Rock and Roll Express, and in the ring, and you see that guy right, that's Randy Savage, one of the real legends of the last 25 years in pro wrestling. And on the other side, you got Chris Candido, Brian Lee, and Bruiser Bedlam. And how did you get Randy Savage into Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Well, Randy Savage at the time was working for the World Wrestling Federation. This is before he switched gears and went south. And Savage, and to my knowledge, this is the only time in history, once again, another unique match on this videotape. The only time ever that Randy Savage and the Rock and Roll Express tag teamed together even going back to the days of Memphis before Randy Savage first went to the WWF, when Savage was a big part of the Memphis wrestling scene in 1984, he and his brother Lanny Poffo wrestled against the Rock and Roll Express in some famous matches, including the time that Savage pile drove Ricky Morton through the ringside table, but they were never on the same team as partners. And Bullet Bob Armstrong is seconding the Savage and the Rock and Roll here in this match. And, of course, myself and Tammy Fitch seconding Chris Candido, Brian Lee, and Bruiser Bedlam. This was in Morristown, Tennessee at the Morristown East High School. And once again, just a unique matchup in terms of the history significance for wrestling.
I mean, one thing that you can tell, this was during the period where Brian Lee was doing the fake Undertaker thing, because you can see he's got that long hair, very similar to The Undertaker on this tape. And, of course, Bruiser Bedlam was a guy, Bruiser Bedlam was a guy from, was it Ontario, Canada?
It was Ontario, and he wrestled for years as Johnny K9.
Yeah.
And finally attained some measure of fame. And in addition to that, as a matter of fact, has a singles victory to his credit over Randy Savage in a match in Knoxville. So Bruiser Bedlam, that was his
career highlight.
Main claim to glory was his time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, as Brian Lee opens up on Randy Savage in the corner now. And Brian Lee's so big and powerful and tall and rangy. Had Savage, he's choking him, and you can see Savage hanging through the ropes. Brian Lee, very vicious and aggressive at this point in his career, and he was involved with Ted DiBiase in the WWF at this same time as the duplicate Undertaker. So he did have the hairdo, but he had a lot of mobility, and he was looking forward to his career taking a sharp turn ahead to go with that.
And it didn't happen, as a matter of fact.
Well, it took a few sharp turns. He went ahead, and then he turned around.
Yeah, that's right. But, yeah, that's right. At this point in time, Brian Lee was – it's interesting because at this time in wrestling, Brian Lee was fixing to be one of the big names in wrestling. I mean, that was the idea. And, again, one of the things that you learn about wrestling is that there's a lot of times that there are these long ideas that are planned, and for whatever reasons, the guy doesn't deliver, the timing isn't right, it just doesn't happen, and things, plans change, and lives change, and history changes because of it.
Well, now Brian Lee, 6'7" and almost 300 pounds here, was showing a lot of agility and his ability to step up on the top rope. He had a lot of balance. But Savage, a guy who created a lot of top rope offense, and we've talked about his time wrestling in the Tennessee territory in Nashville in the late 70s against Bobby Eaton, where they innovated a lot of that top rope offense. Savage was definitely, he's an icon in professional wrestling. He is so recognizable. Besides Hulk Hogan, I don't know, and Steve Austin now, and The Rock, I don't know of anyone over the past 20 years that might be more recognizable on a mainstream basis than Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, because of not just the wrestling, but the Slim Jim commercials as well. I mean, he is one of those guys. Bill Goldberg, I would say maybe another one, but those are the guys that people who, even if you're not a wrestling fan, you go Randy Savage, and they'll go, oh, that's the guy, the wrestler in the Slim Jim's commercial. Sure. But Randy Savage...
so he's basically can attribute a lot of his fame to processed beef sticks.
Some of it. Not in the ring, though.
But not in the ring, where he was, at one time, one of the great talents in the business.
Yeah, he was. In the 80s. He was right up there with the top guys. I mean, just really, really quick, great reflexes. One of the things with Savage also is that Savage, when he started out in wrestling, I guess probably the earliest I remember Randy Poffo was Detroit. I don't know if that's the first place he started. Randy Savage was... I remember watching tapes of Randy Savage in the 70s as Randy Poffo, as this skinny, television job guy who took unbelievable bumps. I mean, you could just see that he had a talent, but he was really small in those days. And then probably the next that I remember would be of Randy Savage was in ICW. And, I had the stories watching Randy Savage, and it was like, I would just go like, wait a minute, I'd watched all this wrestling, and he was doing stuff like these elbows way off the top that nobody else I'd ever seen do. And I was thinking, like, wait a minute, this stuff is not possible for a human being to do, because it was like just far advanced compared to what wrestlers were doing back, I guess, whatever this would be like in the late 70s.
He raised the bar at that point. He was small in body weight. He'd played actually minor league pro baseball.
Yeah.
Which is one of the only baseball players or pro baseball players that I can think of to make the transition to wrestling, but his father being Angelo Poffo, who was a wrestling legend from the 50s and who also gained fame in Ripley's Believe It or Not as doing the most consecutive sit-ups in a row, 6,033 sit-ups in a row.
Why would anyone be possessed to do that?
Angelo Poffo, different type of human being, liked to do sit-ups, and he had a couple of different sons. One of them who changed the course of wrestling, but Savage.
And the other one who didn't.
The other one who didn't. and you know, the sibling rivalry, but Savage did make his mark and change the game in a lot of different ways and raise the bar. And you know, then here now you see more Rock and Roll Express patented strategy, work on the leg. That's another thing that they did that a lot of tag teams, if you'll notice, and most tag teams these days do not do, is they don't have a patented type of offense where they work on a certain body part and all their moves and all their maneuvers play off that. And now Bruiser Bedlam, who was a 600-pound bench presser, by the way, just tremendously strong and just powerful. And he could move for his body weight, but he was just short and compact like a fire plug. At this point, working over Robert Gibson, at this point in time, was suffering from a back problem, but was still able to compete at a pretty good level because he didn't want to short his partners. So this was a big match for everybody involved, being this is the first time that any of the three on the other side of the ring had ever opposed Randy Savage, and the first time that the Rock and Roll had teamed with him. It was kind of an interesting night for all involved.
Yeah. You could see, like, with Ricky Morton and Candido, I mean, this is like really good fast action right here. Now Bruiser Bedlam, were you thinking when you gave him that name, were you thinking Dick the Bruiser, or was it somebody else?
Actually, Dick the Bruiser, in the closing days of his promotion in Indianapolis, it may have even been closed and they were just producing a television show, but the television show was named Bruiser Bedlam.
Right, the last few years.
And the Bedlam was a mental hospital in...
oh, that I didn't know.
Bedlam was a mental hospital in medieval England. Bedlam, by dictionary definition, is panic, turmoil, a scene of wild, mad chaos. And I thought, what a great name. We've missed out here. I've got to find a guy that I can name Bruiser Bedlam, just for the hell of it. And I saw Johnny K9 at a show in Michigan, and I said, well, he doesn't look like a dog, but he does look like a bruiser, and if he was in a wild enough match, it would be Bedlam. Henceforth, Bruiser Bedlam was born for a very short period of time.
Now, as I recall, was he gimmick like a Union strikebreaker? What was his exact gimmick when he first came in?
He worked on the docks of Detroit. Basically, he was a hired thug that would basically bust up the unions if they tried to keep the management from conducting their daily business. He was basically going to break the leg of anybody that he was paid to. I always try to stick really close to home, if you get my drift, with the gimmicks that I give wrestlers. And for a guy to come in and look like that and be paid to beat people up, you know, he fit the bill very well.
We've seen some classic Ricky Morton here just earlier with Candido and everything. Just the way Ricky Morton sets the pace and builds that match and everything. It's you know, it's everything that we always talk about with Ricky Morton. You know, it's like these are very simple wrestling moves, but his ability to get something of the crowd out of like the simplest thing. And now here's Chris Candido tagging in with this is a rocket launcher right there, which actually missed.
And Candido, look at that, takes the bump on his stomach, bounces completely to his feet, lands on his back, and then does the Dick Murdoch curly shuffle around in a circle. I love Candido as a heel, but now the tag to Savage, and Savage comes in, and Randy Savage was a wild man, the Macho Man. That's how he got over. I mean, look at him here. He is getting in his own way. He is so intense. That's what the people loved about Randy Savage. He is all over the page.
And there's that elbow that made him famous.
Yeah, the elbow that made him famous. He is just such a tremendous raw power. And I thought I'd gotten out of the way, but I forgot about Bullet Bob at ringside. And Savage now, you know, still making things happen in the ring. We got the six-way going on. Tammy Fitch trying to pick my carcass up. The Rock and Roll Express's double drop kick. And Randy Savage stretched the man out with the elbow. The Rock and Roll Express hits the double drop kick. The baby faces emerge triumphant, and all is right in America.
Or at least in Morristown.
Well, when Sweet Stan Lane decided to retire from wrestling, his place on the Heavenly Bodies tag team was taken by Dr. Tom Pritchard's cousin, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. And they wasted no time in facing some of the top tag team competition in the sport, including this match against former WWF tag team champions Rick and Scott, the Steiner brothers. And pay close attention to the Steiners' special manager, their pit bull, Arnold.
Michigan at a total weight
Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey and Dr. Tom Pritchard being challenged by their pit bulldog. This dog is vicious, let me tell you that. And if they ever let him go, it'll be bailout city for Cornette, Tom Pritchard, and Dr. Tom Pritchard. The tennis racket is a threatening symbol to the pit bull, and no one wants to hold on to Cornette's racket right here. Rick Steiner, he is the guy with a headpiece on, the college or collegiate type of wrestling gear that they wear in the collegiate ranks. Scott Steiner, I don't have to tell you who these guys are, you know who they are. And the bulldog is after Cornette once again. Dr. Tom Pritchard being challenged by that bulldog. I don't know if I'd want to get in the ring with that bulldog. Let me tell you what. He is a vicious animal. They lock up, and Tom backs him into the ring post, rakes his fingers across the eyes of Scott Steiner, and then catches him with a couple of shots on the forehead. Steiner taking the punishment of Dr. Tom Pritchard on the reverse, sends Pritchard into the turnbuckle, comes back, hoists him high over his head and slams him to the canvas. Jimmy Del Rey, same thing, and the bulldog has a hold of Tom Pritchard's foot. Well, the bulldog got up in the ring and got a hold of Tom Pritchard, and he might have took a couple of bites out of that big toe of Tom Pritchard. I told you not to get close to that corner, Tom. You didn't hear me, and you felt the teeth of that bulldog on your big toe on your right foot. Ha ha. You'll learn next time to stay away from that corner. Tom's complaining to the referee. I don't think the referee can do any good there. He's got to go complain to the Steiners. The bulldog back up on the apron there. They got to put him back outside. He's got plenty enough rope, but he can really get into that ring and get out right quick. So Tom got a taste of that pit bull as he grabbed hold of his big toe right there. Limping a little bit as he backed Scott Steiner into the far corner. Sends a couple of shots into the throat of Scott Steiner. Steiner, well built, well proportioned, backs Tom Pritchard into the turnbuckle, comes back with a hip toss, and Pritchard begs for mercy. Look at the arms on Scott Steiner. Look at the legs. Rippling with muscles. Big pectoral muscles. Steiner comes up with a headlock, reverses, windmills the arm once, twice. Does not make the tag. Now he does. Here comes Rick Steiner. Steiner, well built too. Both collegiate wrestlers out of Detroit, Michigan. Former WWF tag team champions. Been around a while. How much longer is this got to go on? Rick still bouncing off of the ropes as he, where he was, oh, there he caught Tom Pritchard. Pritchard walked right into that and caught the clothesline. That extended right arm of Rick Steiner. Got to get the bulldog out of the ring one more time. He's right up on the apron. Jimmy Del Rey, boy, he bails out right quick. Jim Cornette very quiet in this match. He's on the far side talking to Jimmy Del Rey, but not hearing too much out of Cornette. Scott Steiner trying to whip up the crowd a little bit here to get things rolling again as both Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard. Little conference there with Jim Cornette. Now they collar and elbow and the tag made, and here comes Scott Steiner. Steiner windmilling that arm of Tom Pritchard, yanking at it a couple of times, and Pritchard comes around and breaks his hand across the eyes of Steiner. There's the reverse, comes back up, body slams him, and Del Rey comes in. Ray gets the same treatment.
5 minutes have expired, 55 minutes remain.
And Jimmy Del Rey sent across the ring by Scott Steiner. He lands on top of Pritchard, and then Steiner flips him over. Rick Steiner wheels Dr. Tom across the ring, and there's a double clothesline by the Steiners. And Del Rey backs out right into the Bulldog. Well, we told you to stay away from that corner. And you jump. Oh, looky there. They're going to put his hand right up there into the Bulldog's mouth. Rick Steiner inching Jimmy Del Rey closer to that Bulldog. And they bail out with a help of Jim Cornette. Well, the Bulldog got a hold of Tom Pritchard's toe earlier. Almost got Jimmy Del Rey and Cornette upset enough to jump up and down. Rick Steiner trying to calm the Bulldog down. He don't want to get out of the ring. He wants to stay in where all the action is. Jimmy Del Rey, Tom Pritchard, and Jim Cornette all are backing away from the Steiner Bulldog. Scott Steiner in the ring. He'll go, well, he's getting a little tongue lashing from Dr. Tom Pritchard. Pritchard seems to be upset. Scott Steiner says, I mean, you know, it's all in the game, fella. Pritchard comes up with a headlock, and he's shot across the ring by Scott Steiner. Steiner bails out, goes after Jim Cornette. Steiner's got Cornette by the leg, and Tom trying to pull him inside, and they've got the tennis racket. Somebody let go. There he does. And Cornette comes in the ring after holding on to that. I can't describe this. What's going on? Oh! Tom Pritchard went after them around his side, and the Bulldog took after him, and I believe the Bulldog got the best of Tom Pritchard right there. What a spot to be in for Tom Pritchard. Oh. Across the way, we can't see what's going on, but Jim Cornette is working with Tom Pritchard, who was bitten by the Bulldog, and that was totally unexpected. I don't know if Tom Pritchard will be singing tenor for the next couple of days or not, but I'll tell you what, he had to get a hold of him right there. And Cornette fanning Pritchard with that tennis racket. I don't know if Pritchard's going to be able to get back in the ring or not. But I'll tell you one thing, he'll stay away from the Bulldog in this side of the ring for a while. Jim Cornette is beside himself. He can't figure out how to go up against the Steiners with what's going on out here this evening. Jimmy Del Rey makes the tag. I didn't think Tom Pritchard will come back in. But Del Rey makes the tag, and once again he'll go against Scott Steiner. I believe that's an effort in futility right there. I think if it came to opposing contest and a show of muscles, Del Rey comes out on the he comes out on the shorts end of that stick right there. No love lost between these two, Del Rey and the Steiner. Does a quick spin of the body slam, and Del Rey goes down.
Here it goes, Francis Steiner. Here it goes.
Cornette had Mark Curtis temporarily distracted over there. Tom Pritchard saved the day. Scott Steiner into that table across the way. Rick coming with a chair, a folded metal chair, after Jim Cornette. Cornette set, and there's a tennis racket. He sent Scott Steiner through that table over there. And now Tom Pritchard and Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey double teaming Rick Steiner. And Steiner got the Bulldog. He might let him loose. Across the way, Jimmy Del Rey and Scott Steiner going at it there for just a second as Jimmy Del Rey sends him back into the ring. Goes for the cover on Scott Steiner, gets a 2 count, and Steiner kicks out. Scott Steiner was crashed into that table to ringside. Jimmy Del Rey missing on the kick. And the tag is made as Jimmy Del Rey hangs on. Tried for the clothesline and got it. So Scott Steiner has taken the brunt of the Heavenly Bodies punishment here in the last couple of minutes. That goes to show you the strength of Dr. Tom Pritchard as he picked Scott Steiner up right there and stood him up high. Puts the knee across the throat of Scott Steiner. Now goes for the pin as he cradles the leg and gets the 2 count. Cornette says he should have counted faster. Tag once again made by Pritchard, Jimmy Del Rey. As Pritchard sets him up, comes off of the top rope, catches him in the small of the back. This is a grudge match, as we pointed out earlier. One fall with a 60-minute time limit. And we're about 15 minutes into this match right now. Good move by Del Rey as he hooked the arm of Scott Steiner on the turnaround, sent Steiner to the canvas. Dr. Tom Pritchard put his boot up there, and Del Rey crashed Scott Steiner's head into it. Cradling that chin, arching it back as Tom Pritchard sits on the small of the back of Scott Steiner. Steiner trying to make his way to the corner to be tagged by Rick Steiner. But Tom Pritchard holding on. Jimmy Del Rey and Dr. Tom Pritchard double teaming Scott Steiner. Pritchard cradles that leg, gets a 2 count, and the Steiner kicks out. Scott Steiner. Famous Steiner brothers, former WWF Tag Team Champion. They've held many regional titles over the years, both collegiate wrestlers. And with that ever-present Bulldog in the ring, no one wants to get him to this corner. Bulldog has a mind of his own, don't want to get out of the ring. Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard taking care of business as they work on Scott Steiner. Worn him down after he crashed his head into that table and Cornette clobbered him with a tennis racket. He has not been the same. That probably took a lot of the wind out of him, but there's the reverse, and he comes right back. Del Rey hooks the arm. And there is the reverse, and Steiner comes up with a good move.
15 minutes have expired in this match.
Referee counting both men out. Scott Steiner trying to make the tag. Jimmy Del Rey rolling over, ready to make the tag. And here comes Rick Steiner. Scoops both men, body slams them. Scott Steiner with a drop kick on Pritchard and now on Del Rey. Power slam by Rick Steiner, 1, 2. Pritchard saves the day with that boot to the back of Rick Steiner. Now Scott Steiner comes in to go to work on Tom Pritchard, while Del Rey and Rick Steiner work on the far side of the ring. Power slam by Rick Steiner. Cornette comes in. He gets caught in the midsection by Rick Steiner, and Steiner goes for the bear hug and picks Cornette and puts him down. There's a tennis racket dropped by Cornette, used by Jimmy Del Rey on the back of Rick Steiner. Here goes the cover. 1, 2. No, got his arm up there. 2 count. Had it close. Rick Steiner being double teamed by the Heavenly Bodies. He is in a precarious position right now as Scott Steiner can't get back into the ring. When he tries to get inside, he's cut off by Tom Pritchard. Chokehold applied to Rick Steiner. The Bulldog is loose. That's one way to break it up. Referee having the bell rung. What's the decision?
Winners of the match as a result of a disqualification, the Heavenly Bodies.
Heavenly Bodies win the match. Disqualification. The Steiners let the Bulldog loose in the ring, and referee Mark Curtis disqualified both men for releasing the Bulldog.
Well, for a time, Chris Candido, who would later go on to greater fame in ECW and the World Wrestling Federation, formed a tag team in Smoky Mountain Wrestling with his childhood friend Boo Bradley. But Candido and his manager Tammy Fitch treated Boo more like a slave than a friend. And the wild-eyed Southern boy Tracy Smothers decided to smarten Boo Bradley up at all costs, even if he had to beat it into him. In this match, Tracy picked a rather unique individual to be his partner against Bradley and Candido. He would later go on to greater fame as the WWF's Mick Foley, but whether you call him Mankind, Dude Love, Mick Foley, or what, he was Cactus Jack, and he was the wildest man in wrestling. Let's take a look at this match from Christmas night 1994 in the Knoxville Civic Coliseum.
So graciously announced before the start of the match, Boots the Cat, Boo Bradley's friend and pet, is back in the dressing room, and Tammy Fitch has already threatened to take a burlap sack, put Boots the Cat inside the sack, and throw Boots off the Gay Street Bridge here in Knoxville if Boo Bradley doesn't take care of business. Meanwhile, in the ring, Cactus Jack and Chris Candido squaring off. And out of the ring, they both go. And keep in mind, again, this doesn't matter. Mark Curtis, the referee, follows him right out. Candido goes for the ride into that metal railing, separating some of the fans at ringside. And now Boo Bradley gets a couple of shots. Tracy Smothers off the top of the ring into Candido. And already we've got it all breaking loose outside the ring. Look at Candido. That neck, that chin, right into the top of the metal railing. Meanwhile, Boo Bradley and Cactus Jack on the other side of the ring, and Bradley gets thrown to the hard floor. Candido now and Smothers. Reversal, another reversal, and Candido, there he goes, back into that railing and almost tipped it over. Doesn't matter if anybody is pinned out here. There goes Smothers for a cover count of 2. Count of 2 on Chris Candido. And now Cactus Jack has Boo Bradley. Tracy Smothers has Chris Candido. And Candido right in to Cactus Jack and gets that big knee. And both Candido and Boo Bradley are laying outside the ring like a couple of pieces of garbage. Bradley gets that boot from Cactus Jack. Tracy Smothers and Cactus Jack, cover by Cactus Jack, count of 2, about 2 1/4 there on Boo Bradley. Candido now coming over, and he and Cactus Jack fight. Smothers and Bradley hooking up. A right hand by Smothers. Candido delivering on Cactus Jack, and Cactus Jack retaliates. Boo Bradley on Tracy Smothers, whipping the wild-eyed Southern boy into that railing. That railing has been the focal point. There goes Candido right on the top of the announcer's table. And now Cactus Jack measuring Candido. Here he comes. Oh, my! Candido, I believe, got out of the way just in time, and Cactus Jack right on top of that table, and now Candido with a chair on Cactus Jack. Tracy Smothers has a chair, rams that into Candido. Candido about to fall, and he does, outside the railing. Cactus Jack is down. Here comes that table from Tracy Smothers. Boo Bradley is there. Jack is up and rams Boo Bradley right into that table. Candido once again into that railing. Cactus Jack has that table, picks it up, falls and delivers it right on Boo Bradley on the other side of the ring. Candido now right in between Smothers and Cactus Jack. Jack picks him up for a body slam. Cover outside the ring. Smothers on Boo Bradley got a 2 there. Well, we thought this was going to be wild, and we are not disappointed. That table has really gotten a lot of punishment on its own as it is used once again. Both Bradley and Candido are laying on the far side floor area, outside the ring. Candido is up, and Tracy Smothers reversal there, and Tracy this time gets rammed into the railing. Cactus Jack trying to cover, and did. Boo Bradley got a 2 count again before Candido made the save, and now Cactus Jack is over the railing. Bradley, elbow on top of Tracy Smothers' noggin. Boo Bradley. Bradley, I think, has the bell and clunks it over the head of Smothers. Tracy Smothers picked up the table, but unfortunately, Bradley was there to use it. And Tracy Smothers is down. There goes Cactus Jack into the ring post. We've got it all outside tonight. Most of this match has been outside the ring. Table, bells, whatever isn't nailed down is being used tonight. Here's Tracy Smothers with a chair right into the throat of Boo Bradley. And Candido with a shot to Cactus Jack. And now Cactus Jack is rolled back in the ring. Candido follows. Bradley and Smothers outside the ring. Candido in the corner, teeing off on Cactus Jack. Lefts, rights, lefts, rights. And there is Candido, just a blatant chokehold. Now has that boot right into the throat. Bradley, meanwhile, clocking Tracy Smothers with that table. That table can go into the garbage after tonight. Smothers is back in the ring. Whip into the corner. Cactus Jack goes. Here comes Candido. Nobody home. Nobody home as Cactus Jack got out of the way. Boo Bradley gets kicked outside the ring. Falls down on the floor. Cactus Jack. There's a leg drop on Chris Candido. Tracy Smothers measuring Boo Bradley. Cover by Cactus Jack, count of 2. Smothers on Bradley. Couple of rights. Cactus Jack also out there to help out. Rakes the back of Boo Bradley. Chris Candido falls out of the ring. Not sure where he is at the moment. Cactus Jack elbows to Boo Bradley. Over and over and over and over. Candido now back on Smothers. Cactus Jack has a chair. And there he goes right on the back. Boo Bradley. There's a power bomb. Candido covers Smothers. Count of 2. A near fall there. Candido on Smothers. Near fall for Chris Candido covering the Wild-Eyed Southern Boy. Chair into the ring. Candido, Smothers, Bradley, and Jack all there now. Cactus Jack on Boo Bradley. Tracy Smothers in the corner, and Chris Candido climbs to that middle rope. There is a DDT. Bradley right flush onto that chair from Cactus Jack, and Chris Candido a little worse for wear. Big knee drop, and Candido out. Cover by Cactus Jack. Count of 2 on Boo Bradley. Chris Candido reaching for, looks like another chair, and Cactus Jack thrown outside the ring. Boo Bradley has Tracy Smothers there. There's that bell that Chris Candido uses on Cactus Jack. Boo Bradley just whacks that shoulder, Tracy Smothers. Tracy Smothers has had that bad shoulder. There is Cactus Jack, and he lands on top of that metal ring post, the metal railing there, the hard way. Bradley into the turnbuckle. Boo Bradley into the corner, and Tracy Smothers climbing up. Meanwhile, from the backside, Candido with that chair lands it right on the back of Tracy Smothers. Cactus Jack is outside the ring, and Tracy Smothers tries to fall out of the ring, but Boo Bradley catches him. Candido and Bradley both in the ring now, and Tracy Smothers hanging there. And outside goes Smothers hard into that railing. Cactus Jack really took one outside the ring. He's nowhere to be found at the moment. Candido on Smothers. Here finally comes Cactus Jack. Meanwhile, Smothers gets plotted right on top of that railing. Bradley finding Cactus Jack and gives him a neck breaker right on that top ring rope. Bradley now covers Smothers, count of 2, and a near fall. Oh my, that was close to 3. About as close as you possibly could get, and Smothers just barely able to get that shoulder up. Cactus Jack is outside the ring still. Meanwhile, Candido and Bradley working on Smothers. Again, Bradley keeping Cactus Jack outside. Candido holds, and a big foot by Boo Bradley on Tracy Smothers. Double teaming now, Candido and Bradley. The elbow from Candido on that shoulder, that sore shoulder of Tracy Smothers. Cactus Jack trying desperately to get back into the ring. Bradley there, misses, and Cactus Jack is finally back in. Boo Bradley tried for a shoulder block, missed, and he's outside. Cactus Jack there with him. Cactus Jack, there's a moonsault right on top of Boo Bradley, and Bradley is down. Cactus Jack goes with him. In the corner, meanwhile, Chris Candido working on Tracy Smothers. Cactus Jack now back in the ring. Sees Candido, stumbles over, helping out his partner. And now Candido, thinking that is Bradley, telling Bradley getting away. Whoop! Hey, look who's there, Candido. Cactus Jack and Tracy Smothers. Double teaming the Suicide Blonde. Candido into the ropes. And there is a double body slam. Backflip Candido onto the canvas. Candido tries and is able to roll out. Manager Tammy Fitch gets out of the way as Tracy Smothers goes chasing Chris Candido. They're outside the area. Meanwhile, Cactus Jack and Boo Bradley are also outside. Jack has Bradley, Smothers has Candido, and they're rammed in to each other. And now Smothers on Candido. Here they go. Kind of getting away from our camera view, but we'll try to keep with the action. The lights are on here. All 4 men ganging up on each other. And again, this is Falls Count Anywhere in the building. Candido, Smothers, Cactus Jack, and Boo Bradley. We got it all over the building here as we thought we might. Cactus Jack has Boo Bradley, Candido, and Smothers. Our camera trying to keep up with the action. It ain't easy, folks. All 4 men now are well away, heading back to the dressing room area. Tammy Fitch, meanwhile, standing helplessly by the ring area. We got it all over the building here. And again, somebody could wind up losing this match tens and tens of feet away from the squared circle. These guys are behind a plexiglass here that is used for the Knoxville Cherokees ice hockey team. The action goes on. Cactus Jack has Chris Candido. Smothers with Boo Bradley. Tied up. Well away from the ring area. And now it looks like Candido and Bradley are double teaming Smothers. Smothers retaliates. These guys are well away from the ring area here, but it is Falls Count Anywhere in the building, so referee Mark Curtis is right there with them. The house lights are on, fans crowding around behind again that plexiglass here at the Civic Coliseum. Christmas chaos in Knoxville. Now they appear to be coming back towards the ring area, at least a couple of them. Here comes Candido as he hightails it back to higher ground. Tracy Smothers follows him. Smothers has a chair chasing down Candido, and Candido really gets one. Candido is down. Boo Bradley and Cactus Jack are also, I think, headed back towards the ring. Cactus Jack whacking Boo Bradley with a garbage can. Another blow from that can. Smothers and Candido by the ring. That can is really dented up, courtesy of the head of Boo Bradley, as Cactus Jack brings Bradley back to the ring. Is this wild or what here? Bradley against the ring, hammered in. He's back in, and now Smothers hits that ring post, thrown there by Chris Candido. These four men have to be exhausted. Candido tries to get back in. Bradley is there.
Well, this next match is a collector's item to be sure, because a pre-head Al Snow takes on the Rock and Roll Express's Ricky Morton in a cage match. And Al Snow's partner at the time, Unabomb, was handcuffed to the ring post to prevent any further outside interference. Well, folks, Unabomb would go on to greater fame in the World Wrestling Federation as Kane. But keep your eyes on him in this match, which has a very surprising and a very shocking climax.
To see any ounce of fair play that he would rip the neck brace off of Ricky Morton. The crowd chanting rock and roll. Right hand, right fist by Al Snow. Again, in the ring there is that neck collar by Ricky Morton. 5 minutes into this match. Reversal by Morton. Snow into the corner. Morton follows it up, climbing the middle rope. Right, right, right. Snow catches atomic drop, blocked by Morton. They try right hands, blocked, and there again, Snow with a neck breaker. Snow knows what he wants to do in this ring. He didn't end the career last time of Ricky. He wants to tonight. Flips him back. Super move by simply sensational Al Snow. Give the devil his due. He knows what to do inside the squared circle. Morton in obvious pain. Now Snow has that neck collar. Oh my. Al Snow is going to put that collar on, mocking Ricky Morton. Foot to the head by Al Snow. Again, handcuffed to the ring posts. Unabomb and Robert Gibson. Morton sent flying into the cage. And again, Al Snow. Well, if he's looking for any kind of crowd approval, he is not only in the wrong building, he is in the wrong country. I don't think there's much of anything in the way of wrestling fans that are going to cheer Al Snow. Ricky Morton trying to get up. Snow waits for him. Right fist. Off the ropes, Ricky Morton. Snow there, tries for a backdrop. Morton tried for a sunset flip. Snow trying to punch out. Morton won't release the hold. Flips him down. 1, 2, and about 2.5 from Mark Curtis. Savate kick by Al Snow, and down Ricky Morton. We expected a war tonight, fans, and we have not been disappointed. Morton down. Snow measures. Snow off the rope with a leg drop. The neck brace ripped off of Ricky Morton, so that compressed vertebrae of Morton now exposed to the whim of the diabolical Al Snow. Morton clutching the neck. I don't know how much he can take of this.
Well, folks, this next match was one of the bloodiest battles ever fought in Smoky Mountain Wrestling for the SMW Tag Team Championship. In a sold-out Knoxville Civic Coliseum, it featured the Heavenly Bodies, Dr. Tom Pritchard and Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, in the unfamiliar role of challengers as they faced the current reigning champions, Tracy Smothers, the wild-eyed Southern Boy, and the Dirty White Boy, collectively known as the Thugs. And believe me, this match is not for the squeamish.
Slipped out of his grip, but White Boy right back on him with that elbow, and there he stops him with the choke. Del Rey up, wham!
Wow. High off the top ropes. Jimmy Del Rey, as Pritchard was able to make the tag, and the White Boy, I don't think Les was aware of it.
No, I don't believe he was. Otherwise, he'd have been prepared for Del Rey with that flying elbow. Drops the White Boy.
Oh, gosh, that is repulsive there. I don't know if Del Rey's got a problem down at that juncture of the bot or what. I was hoping I'd seen the last of that, but I guess with the bodies back in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, that's something we got to look forward to.
Well, Chip, after all, those are the heavenly bodies.
So they say.
That's one man's opinion, right? Or
Chop
three.
by Dr. Tom Pritchard. Right hand by the Doctor of Desire, as General Cornette likes to refer to him. Here comes the white boy, trying to power out.
Tommy should know better than to go heads up, fist for fist with the white boy.
Tag was made, and as we've always seen in the past, Les, when it comes to the bodies, they make a lot of tags during a match.
And that's what's made him so successful too, Chip.
Rights by Jimmy Del Rey. And the white boy laying in the corner there, and while the ref's attention is diverted, Tom Pritchard tees off. Jimmy Del Rey helping out with a foot. Jim Cornette itching, I'm sure, at the opportunity to lend his hands, which he didn't amazingly, before the ref recovered to see what was going on. Double team off the ropes now. The white boy catches them both. Double DDT.
White
Wow.
boy doubled up on him there and surprised the heavenly bodies and then some. Right now, though, Tony needs to make that tag, Chip.
Looking towards Tracy and is able to do it. Here comes the wild-eyed Southern boy. One to Del Rey, one to Pritchard, another Del Rey. Pritchard is down. Smothers on the attack. Works Del Rey off the ropes. Drop kick by the wild-eyed Southern boy. Flinging Pritchard off the ropes. Elbow to the jaw of Pritchard. Picking up the gigolo. Body slam by Tracy Smothers.
Tracy going topside. Watch him.
Looks like he's measuring him as he called out before for the jaw jacker.
Whoa.
But there is Pritchard, and he is able to crotch Smothers.
Tracy came down hard, and he's going to be down for a while.
And now Pritchard working Smothers into that ring post. Pritchard with a word to one of the photographers here at ringside,
Who happens to be Bill Apter.
one of the deans of wrestling journalists here, amongst the many members of the media carrying reports back to their various publications.
He's rolling Tracy in now. White boy being put out. Let's see what Del Rey's going to do here with Smothers.
Right foot on Smothers. And now it's Smothers who needs to get his partner back into the action.
What is Jimmy doing? Taking his time. Tracy's coming to his knees now. I thought maybe he was going to be down there for a while, but Smothers.
Del Rey had the chin lock and appeared, and now measures him with a right. And another.
It looks like he's opened Tracy up. Tracy is bleeding.
Tracy Smothers gashed open here tonight. Meanwhile, there is Tom Pritchard.
Pritchard will take advantage of it, and that's what this is about. You can only say that. They're doing what you're supposed to do, beating them. The man has a weakness. They've found it, and they're going to capitalize on it.
Pritchard with a handful of hair, and then takes a shot at the forehead of Smothers, which has been bashed open.
Yeah, while that was going on, of course, it was Del Rey keeping the referee with him and White Boy on the other side of the ring. Look at here, a good shot on Tracy. Tracy coming up, trying to fight back. Couldn't get his hands up, and it was hit low on that one, very low.
Low blow by the Heavenly Bodies and Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. Not a shock when you think about it. Works him to the corner, rights. And Smothers, as the camera shows you, gashed wide open, and he desperately needs to make that tag.
Yes, he does. Look at Cornette with a shot with a tennis racket, and another one. Tracy down. Look at here.
And
White Boy out after the manager.
White Boy saw what was going on. He had his fill of it and went out after Jim Cornette. Meanwhile, as Mark Curtis sends the White Boy back to the corner, the Heavenly Bodies continue to tee off on a prone Tracy Smothers.
Tracy needs that tag now. He's in trouble.
Into the turnbuckle, into the corner. Big chop by Dr. Tom.
Pritchard straightening him up with a chop through the right hand and right behind it. Straightens him up with a chop and meets it with the right coming across. Combination is lethal. Tracy needs to get out of that ring.
Well, if Tracy ever was able to call on some reserve, he really needs it here. Smothers hanging across that rope there. Super camera shot. Taking you right inside the squared circle into the action. Pritchard going for the suplex, connecting with it.
Let's see what Pritchard going for the knee. He's got him.
Right down, cover 2.
Telling you, Chip, we could see him changing hands here at any moment.
I don't know how Smothers was able, Les, to kick out of that, really.
Those belts are in jeopardy, no doubt about it at this point in time.
The Heavenly Bodies back in Smoky Mountain Wrestling here before a sold-out house at the Super Bowl of Wrestling. Body slam by Jimmy Del Rey. Tag made. Tom Pritchard back in, though Del Rey at the moment not going anywhere. Helps up Pritchard, drop the leg. Down on Smothers, cover. 1, 2, 2.5. Jim Cornette there last at ringside, pacing. He can sense maybe a quick ending to this match, and the belt's coming back to the militia.
And look at here, he and Del Rey trying to, look at here, look at that shot of Tracy.
Yuck. Smothers has been bleeding profusely for several moments now. It's a wonder he hasn't passed out.
Tracy trying to build a head of steam. Tracy wanting to get back in this thing, but right now he needs more than anything to make the tag, get to his corner and tag his partner.
The fans here can't believe that Tracy Smothers is in such bad shape. Tracy trying to get to his feet, trying to make that tag. Elbow by Smothers, another by Tracy Smothers, a third. Gets out of it. Reversal though by Pritchard off the ropes, and Pritchard catches him there in a sleeper hold.
Exactly. Tracy should have been headed in the other direction. I think he lost his sense of direction momentarily, which gave Pritchard a chance to slap that sleeper on him. Let's see if he can take him down with it. No.
Smothers out, reverses, got his own sleeper for a moment there, and Pritchard able to get out of that and slam him down.
Pritchard was able to scoop him off of that one. Tracy never got set up with a headlock. Pritchard was able to drop him with a suplex.
And Pritchard misses with the elbow. Here comes Smothers, but Pritchard raises up the knees. And Smothers now, in addition to bleeding.
Our next tag team action features a cast of legends. Boo Bradley, who would later go on to fame in ECW as Balls Mahoney, teamed up with the rugged veteran, the Mongolian Stomper, in the Knoxville Civic Coliseum to face the tag team of former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Tommy Wildfire Rich and his partner, the cornerstone of the original Fabulous Freebirds, Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Let's go to that wild action in the Knoxville Coliseum.
Here we got two guys who were big superstars in the early 1980s of Atlanta, Georgia wrestling on the Superstation. Terry Gordy and Tommy Rich going up against the Mongolian Stomper and Boo Bradley, who of course later became Balls Mahoney. So we've got a couple of veterans and one guy, and Boo Bradley, who was basically a newcomer in the business at this point in time. Tommy Rich and Terry Gordy have a couple of things in common when we talk about that era of Atlanta wrestling, because these guys in their early 20s were two of the biggest stars in the game. Tommy Rich actually NWA champion at about 24 years old, and he was a main event wrestler for years before that even.
That's right. Well, he started his career, Tommy Rich did, in 1975, very early in 75 in the Tennessee territory, in the Memphis territory. He was a native of Hendersonville, right outside of Nashville, and he was an 18-year-old young bleached blonde, white meat baby face, and the people loved him. And within his first year and a half of the business, working with veterans like Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto and Jackie Fargo, he got to be a pretty polished wrestler for only a couple of years' experience. And by 1980, I believe it was, Tommy had been signed to go to Georgia Championship
Probably
Wrestling.
even earlier than that. I think probably by 78, 79.
As a matter of fact, it was 1980 he won the title, but he went to Georgia in
he
latter
was
part of 78.
with Rick Martel, I think, and with Dick Slater and Tony Atlas, different tag teams, Wahoo McDaniel.
That's right.
Before he even gave him the big run as a singles guy.
And Georgia was on fire at that point, and TBS was just beginning to become a superstation.
Right.
And
he was one of the earliest stars they made. In fact, he may have been.
Right. He may have been the first star that was made on TBS.
Yeah, specifically on TBS, because I remember Tommy Rich coming to the Bay Area, and I mean, and he would pick up the crowd significantly. Probably 50%. Just from his Atlanta television appearances.
That's right. And by 1980, when he won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship from Harley Race, at the age of 24, he was the second youngest man in the history of the belt. Only Lou Thez, at the age of 21, had been younger when he first won that championship, and that had been back in 1937. So for 40-some years, Tommy Rich was the second youngest man to hold that title, and the impact that he had on the business can't be underestimated, but it's hard to understand 20 years later how this 23, 24-year-old kid with not much of a great body and promos that weren't really all that fabulous.
It was just one of those things,
was
right
the
place.
hottest babyface, the hottest single babyface in the wrestling business, but he had a charisma. He was on that television that was over with the wrestling fans, and he had a charisma that couldn't be
He had a
denied.
hometown charisma that worked, and it was just one of those things. That that show, was the first thing, on cable that went national, and he was, one of the top single stars, and therefore he got over. It's kind of like a lot of the guys, I would say, like in that 84, 85 period off of WWF TV, some of whom were not all that good, but managed to, make names that they were able to keep for 10, 15 years just because they were there, in that Hulk Hogan
But
era.
I'll tell you what, with Tommy Rich also, when he was young and when he was in shape and when he had the fire of wildfire and as a babyface, he very Ricky Morton-like in the ring, in that he would sell and sell and sell, and you could beat this kid just about to death, and the people would sympathize, and he had the talent to know how much to sell without dying and when to make that comeback, and that's why really his in-ring work at that time and the talent pool that he was in and that he was allowed to work against, including the likes of the Freebirds and some of the big heels of that day, that's what made Tommy Wildfire Rich, and the run with the NWA World Title was almost something that had to be done because he was so big as a babyface in the Georgia territory that if he had not won the title after so many tries, they were afraid that the fans would have lost faith in him. And so that's how hot he was. He was the hottest babyface in the business at one time. And then Terry Gordy, conversely, obviously, the cornerstone of the original fabulous Freebirds team. We've talked about it. Michael Hayes was the personality and the brains behind the team, but Terry Gordy was the workhorse. And at about that same time, or just a couple of years later, the Freebirds would set Georgia Championship Wrestling on fire, in a completely different way.
Also, this is, as we point out, this is Terry Gordy. He's past his prime here. He had like a couple of near-death experiences too, actually, and he was really not the Terry Gordy of old. Tommy Rich, what was interesting about Tommy Rich is that his career. I mean, it was one of those things where you ever talk about a guy who had so much early, and then like his latter career, probably past the age of 25, 26. I guess the last really big thing people remember out of Tommy Rich as a super main eventer in Atlanta was Buzz Sawyer, although he had some runs in Tennessee, including one with Austin Idol against Jerry Lawler that was a real big deal many years later. But Tommy Rich's career peaked early, and he was around the business and still wrestles today. But it was one of those things where some guys it takes them 10 years to be an overnight success. And Tommy Rich was the opposite. He was like, the tortoise in the hare. He was the hare, but burned out early.
He was an overnight success that didn't stay more than a couple of nights.
Yeah.
But during that time, it can't be denied that he was on the cover of every magazine.
Yeah.
He was, and possibly it's because the teen idols in wrestling, or the teeny bopper idol in wrestling, has a shorter shelf life, because a couple of years later, his picture on the magazine covers had been replaced by Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah.
And that lasted a couple of years before the next heartthrob came along. And so, sometimes that it may be a blessing in that you get really hot, but it may be a curse in that the target audience, they grow up quickly.
Well, you have to, I think at that point you have to change pace. And for whatever reason, Tommy Rich's gimmick or never in the right place at the right time, he never could make the change into a new character.
Well, that's because Tommy Wildfire Rich was not a character. Tommy Rich was Tommy Rich. He was a big old country boy with a southern accent, and when he was young, he had a lot of fire, and as he got older and here as a heel, you can see the bitterness coming out, which made him an effective heel, but in an era of physiques, he didn't have one.
Yeah, and I think that probably
was a big part of it.
Yeah, that probably really hurt him, towards the middle and latter part of the 80s. And Tommy Rich, who as I recall, never went to the WWF, and he was not. Although I think he may have worked in that glory period, he may have come up to Madison Square Garden once or twice.
He did work Madison Square Garden in the early '80s before the Worldwide Wrestling
But before the
Federation
big
became
war
the
and before
WWF.
everything changed, yeah. but he was not, you know, I mean, even though he was a super over wrestler in the early 1980s, by 1984 when Vince McMahon changed wrestling and went national and everything, Tommy Rich was not the prototype of what he would have wanted, or, you know, it was just not his style. Plus that southern accent and everything, that was, you know, they had that New York mentality. That wasn't what they were looking for from a babyface.
Exactly, and that's why, you know, a lot of battle lines were drawn among North and South wrestling, and of course I've always preferred the Southern style of wrestling. It was always treated with more credibility. It was always treated with a little bit more respect and a little more seriousness, and it was a little more heat-oriented, a little more heel-oriented, and that's always what I've preferred, but at the same time, you have to adapt and you know, make things work for yourself, and a lot of guys were able to adapt, and the wrestling war was a WCW and WWF war, and a lot of it was a North and South war, and some of the guys on the Southern side that were far more talented than the Northern counterparts because they were either smaller or pigeonholed as Southern, you know, they lost out in that change of era and change of conflict in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, and yeah, that's an interesting thing. Now, Mongolian Stomper, on the other hand, Mongolian Stomper was a guy who, I'm not sure where would he have started about in the early 60s, late 50s?
Very early 60s, and he was a late starter.
Now, was he originally, because I think he was originally trained by a guy named Joe Millich, who was a shooter out of St. Louis, if I recall. And I remember, you know, the Stomper Archie Gouldy, as far as Kansas City, big star over there, and of course,
and
Calgary
figured
with Stu Hart.
Very early in his career.
He was actually one of the legendary heels. Stu Hart used to wrestle the Stomper. That was one of Stu Hart's most famous opponents. And you know, when you ever get Stu Hart talking about wrestlers, you know, it was like the Stomper and Bad News Allen and the Dynamite Kid. I mean, those were the real heels that put Calgary wrestling on top.
Well, the Stomper in this match, and you know, we'd mentioned on another volume the fact that the Stomper had homesteaded in Knoxville, Tennessee, that he enjoyed it and liked the area so much when he went there to wrestle, and he had such success there in the middle 70s that he ended up moving there, and even if he would go out to wrestle somewhere else on tour, he'd always maintain his permanent home in Knoxville. But the Stomper in this match was nearing 60 years of age, and you know, just stayed in tremendous physical condition and ran marathons and bicycle races and was just a complete fitness freak. And so he physically never looked his age, but he was a late starter in wrestling and still managed to have a career that spanned about 35 years until I believe at this point he's probably pretty well retired due to a bad lower back. But the Stomper was a major name and a fearsome heel in Florida and Georgia and Texas. He was very big in Texas, both in the San Antonio and in the Dallas ends of the Texas territory. So the Stomper had a long and illustrious career, and you know, you can see the veteran positioning in this match, and you can tell the veteran ring tactics and teamwork of everybody involved, except for poor Boo Bradley, who was in there, the novice in the field of guys that had known each other for 20 years, and I think he held up his part of the end pretty well. But Stomper was your basic no frills, kick, punch, stomp, and rip and destroy kind of guy. And he was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling toward the tail end of his career more as a character attraction on a intermittent basis. Tommy Rich pulls Terry Gordy out of the way. Boo Bradley hits the top turnbuckle, and Tommy Rich capitalizes quickly.
He got the win there.
And the team of Rich and Gordy, who were going places. As a matter of fact, they were going a lot of places because Smoky Mountain Wrestling would close 3 months later, and they'd have to go someplace. but at this point, they were going places in the tag team picture in SMW, and now, you know, the one thing is that Boo Bradley always carried that chain that he was led around after he broke away from Chris Candido. Candido used to lead him around by the chain. Boo Bradley always carried the chain, and that came in handy as an equalizer there. And now the Stomper was never reticent to take it to the floor, and that's what he does, as Rich and Gordy won the battle but did not necessarily win the war. And now for something completely different. Our next match is not a classic by any standards of the definition. However, Lori Farrell and some of the folks at VCI Entertainment thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen and asked us to include it in the program. The world's biggest mouth, me, made the mistake of agreeing to face the world's meanest midget wrestler, Butch Cassidy, in a one-on-one showdown. And unfortunately, folks, I came up just a little bit short.
I guess this is what passes for a man in this city, huh? Of course, he could probably whip past the balls. Let me tell you something, you little shrimp. I'm going to give you one chance to turn your sorry little scrawny butt around and get the heck on out that back door before I not only embarrass you, but beat you within about a half an inch of your stinking life.
Well, is he going? Apparently not.
Well, that just goes to show how stupid you people are. And I'm going to show you, punk. You little dwarf, I'm going to show you how stupid you are for trying to get in the ring with me in the first place. I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Well, apparently a lesson is to be learned tonight. It remains to be seen who will be the teacher. General Jim Cornette or Big Butch Cassidy. And here we go, our referee Mark Curtis, and again at ringside, Sergeant Rock. And right now, the sergeant has the General's tennis racket. Well, Jim Cornette, when you look at his wrestling record over the years, it's quite pitiful. But you got to wonder, again, with a midget here, what kind of push-ups are those? Whoa! You look at Butch Cassidy, he is certainly well put together. Cornette is just there in terms of his wrestling physique. Looks like the General's already had too much turkey on Thanksgiving. Look out! Butch Cassidy right on top. Oh, there's a little spanking action. Cornette already heading out for higher ground. Butch Cassidy has come here tonight to wrestle. Jim Cornette so far has done a lot of talking. And his idea is some exercises, but not too much in the wrestling department. Cornette has said he can whip any 4-foot man alive. Let's see if he can. He's wanting a test of strength here. And I wouldn't put it past Butch Cassidy to accept the challenge, though cautiously, as you must do with Jim Cornette. They will lock fingers, and we'll see where we go from here. Cornette puts on the pressure. Whoa, Cassidy now biting. Butch Cassidy. And if Cornette's a southpaw, he might have to go to the right hand. Maybe Butch was a little hungry there. The early psychological edge gone to Big Butch Cassidy. Buddy Landell, surprise for General Jim Cornette here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Cornette has done his best to try to humiliate Butch Cassidy. Side headlock by Big Butch Cassidy on the General Jim Cornette. Cassidy off the ropes, duck under Cornette. Cassidy right there with him. Boo! Cornette didn't like what he saw. Cornette calling Butch Cassidy a shrimp. Poured some ketchup on him a few weeks ago. Butch then came back with a so-called present for the General on television and about choked the life out of him. Now Cornette on the ring apron slowly makes his way back inside the squared circle. Has a lock up, side headlock by Cornette. Cinches it in. Feels he has things going his way, off the ropes now. Cornette for the ride. Crisscrossing now Butch Cassidy on the opposite end. And now Cornette. What's Cornette doing here? Cornette off the ropes. And he is in such tremendous shape. Oh my. Down Cornette, quick cover. Mark Curtis catching Cassidy. Another count of two. Flips him back on Cornette. Another count of two. Back again. Cornette keeps tossing him off. And Mark Curtis keeps throwing him back. Jim Cornette's wondering what's going on here. 5 minutes gone, I might say probably the longest 5 minutes of Jim Cornette's miserable life. Double axe handle by Big Butch Cassidy. Shot to that ample gut of Cornette, who now comes back with a right of his own. Cassidy thrown outside. And keep your eye on Sergeant Rock as she heads over that way. Now Cassidy crawling underneath the ring. Cornette waiting, doesn't realize that Cassidy now has come up behind him. Oh! Oh! Ho, ho! Well, that is an ample target for Butch Cassidy to sink his choppers into. A lot of flesh back there on General Cornette. Little moral support from Sergeant Rock. Well, Cornette so far, at least psychologically, has been bested big time by Big Butch Cassidy. Little conference now. Cassidy going to break that up the hard way. The hard head of Sergeant Rock meeting the empty head of General Jim Cornette. Cornette can't do much right so far. Well, he came back in for a second. Here he comes, Cassidy waiting. Now what's Cornette want? He wants a timeout. You would think a manager like General Cornette would know there are no timeouts in professional wrestling. Oh, he wants to shake hands? Cassidy doesn't think so. A couple of shots to the midsection. Axe handle. And now face first into that turnbuckle. Several times by Big Butch Cassidy. And Cornette down. Cornette can't believe what he's gotten himself into. Butch Cassidy down. Cornette able to drop him. And there is a blatant chokehold by the General. Nothing pretended there. Elbow from Cornette. And again, as much as you can say Cornette's wrestling abilities leave a lot to be desired, he's got that size and weight advantage. Another choke as Cassidy flat on his back, and the advantage goes to Jim Cornette. Cornette now will pick him up and slam him down. Cornette now dropping the elbow. And this might be it. Cover and a count of about 2.5. A very sloppy cover by the General. Shot to the back of the head. And now Cornette takes him into the corner to that middle turnbuckle. And Big Butch Cassidy trying to get some air and some cover. Cornette now with a nerve hold. The back of the neck there on Big Butch Cassidy. Cornette cinching in those greasy fingernails of his. Working on the shoulder area, the back of the neck. Butch Cassidy trying to rally. The crowd here supporting him in Knoxville. Cassidy to his feet, some elbows. Comes off the ropes, duck under by Butch Cassidy. Flying crossbody cover, and the 1 count. A very weak clothesline by Cornette. Now takes that foot, just rakes it across the neck. Butch Cassidy receiving the elbow. Staggering back. 10 minutes now into this match. And Jim Cornette telling the crowd this one is about history. Fist to the head. Drops down the elbow. Cassidy prone, takes another shot across the throat. Kind of a cover. Cassidy able to kick out. Cornette not bothering to hook the leg. Sergeant Rock, meanwhile, in conversation with the referee. Cassidy to his feet. Big Butch trying to shake it off. Those marshmallow rights from Jim Cornette. Now Cassidy ready to go. And Jim Cornette, who thought this one was about over, sees that it isn't. Right to the belly. Shot to the head. Down Cornette. Cassidy now goes for the snapmare. Leg drop. Big Butch Cassidy. Helping up Cornette. Readies the right fist. And hits a home run on Jim Cornette. Cornette off the ropes. Here he comes. Shot to the midsection. Butch Cassidy fired up. Remembering all the nasty things that Cornette has said and done to him. Oh my, suplex from Butch Cassidy. Here's Sergeant Rock, makes the save, but the referee is going to call for the bell. Cassidy had the general pinned, and Sergeant Rock comes in to save his hide. But now Sergeant Rock tees off on Big Butch Cassidy. Sergeant Rock with a few choice words as Cornette recovers in the corner. But Cassidy is down, boot to the head.
Well, there it was, Jim Cornette and Butch Cassidy in a 1-on-1/2 confrontation. But right now, we go back to classic wrestling. Two of the great brother tag teams of all time, Scott and Steve Armstrong, the sons of the legendary Bullet Bob Armstrong, taking on the possibly greatest brother tag team of all time in professional wrestling. Both former NWA World Heavyweight Champions, the only brothers ever to hold that prestigious title, Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk against the Armstrongs in a wild tag team showdown.
Terry Funk now in with Scott Armstrong. They tie up. A headlock, but Terry Funk will go off the ropes here. Shoulder block. Armstrong is down. Left hand from Terry Funk. Follows it up with a ringing headlock. Snapmare. Down on the mat, Scott Armstrong. Brother Steve yet to come in here tonight. There is the ever-present Jim Cornette enjoying the scene in the squared circle. Terry Funk with a left. Scott trying to power out there. He's in the wrong corner, though. Dory Funk Jr. is in. Again, double team, whip off the ropes. Couple of smashes with the respective arms. There's Terry Funk spitting. There's no call for that. And Scott, he's got his dander up, but again, he's in the wrong corner there. The forearm by the former world champion, Dory Funk Jr. Outside goes Scott Armstrong, and he again is in the wrong area. Bullet Bob coming over, though. Bullet Bob Armstrong, and oh my, Scott Armstrong completely flipped out, and Bob Armstrong tees off on Terry Funk. Bullet Bob Armstrong after Terry Funk. Meanwhile, Scott Armstrong is outside of that iron gate, helped back in the hard way by Dory Funk, who drops him neck first right on the top of that railing. Well, Bob Armstrong got a shot into Terry Funk. There's Cornette with a cheap shot. Now Terry Funk is on the outside of the ring apron, reaching back for Scott. Bob Armstrong, he's being ushered out of the area. And meanwhile, Terry Funk into the crowd with Scott Armstrong. Below our vantage point, he rams him into what could be that hard concrete wall down there. Action is all over the building here tonight. Scott Armstrong nowhere near the ring. He's trying to come back, though. Again, that action out of the camera and my vantage point briefly. Terry Funk, though, using anything he can. Help back over that iron gate. Bob Armstrong is there. Meanwhile, Funk helping Scott Armstrong back in, and Steve Armstrong has yet to get tagged in tonight. Dory Funk, there's kind of a modified pile driver, almost ramming that head in cover, count of 2. And somehow, and I repeat somehow, Scott Armstrong is able to get out. Terry Funk, though, thought the count was a little slow. Forearm by Dory Funk. There's another. And again, Armstrong is in the wrong corner. He's been there most of this match. There's a suplex. Cover by Dory Funk Jr., count of 2. Somehow, and I don't really know how, Scott Armstrong is still fighting in the center of the ring. Terry Funk is in. A right, another, a third one, a fourth, and there's a left. And Scott is down. Funk now, he's got something from his trunks. Looks like a rope or something. Got it around the neck and the throat area of Scott Armstrong. Meanwhile, Dory Funk Jr. is in. Mark Curtis finally ushering Dory Funk Jr. to the corner. Steve Armstrong can't stand what he's seeing, and he's trying to come in, and Mark Curtis is quickly there to turn him away. Bob Armstrong's beside himself. Terry Funk used some sort of string, a rope, still has it there. Mark Curtis, unfortunately, didn't see the fact that the Armstrongs had Terry Funk pinned in the center of the ring.
Well, one of the most controversial tag team combinations in any federation or alliance was the Gangstas, New Jack and Mustafa. They got their start in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and they quickly went after the top dogs of the organization, Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express. In this match, the action didn't really get started until the competitors had left the ring.
I can't believe what's transpired.
Well, there you have it, just some of the wild action that Smoky Mountain Wrestling became known for. And if you'd like to see more SMW, then please check out The Night of the Legends, or Before They Were Famous, a compilation of some of today's top stars before they were well known, both from Kit Parker Films and VCI Entertainment. For now, I'm Jim Cornette. We'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this program, but wait, there's still more Wrestling Gold. Lots more. Log on to WrestlingGold.com or call 1-800-331-4077 for your free catalog.